Nobody, and I mean nobody, thought Sheduer Sanders would walk into an NFL training camp and immediately have half the locker room, the coaching staff, and even the owner leaning forward in their seats every time he touched the ball. He was supposed to be a developmental piece, a long-term project, the kind of rookie who holds a clipboard, shakes a few hands, and maybe sees some garbage time snaps late in the season. Instead, 7 days into camp, Sheduer had already rewritten the Browns' quarterback conversation.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
From the outside looking in, you could see why people weren't expecting much. 5th-round pick, limited NFL reps, competing against a $230 million man in Deshaun Watson. That's not just an uphill battle. That's like trying to run a marathon while dragging a couch behind you. But here's the thing. Sheduer didn't care about the optics. He wasn't interested in waiting his turn or politely sitting at the back of the line. He came in with the body language of someone who had already decided the job was his. It was just a matter of convincing everyone else. And convincing them didn't take long. The whispers started during light drills. A few veterans on the sideline noticed how quickly he was processing coverage shifts, how the ball was coming out of his hand like it had GPS coordinates locked in. No wasted motion, no panic steps, no flinching at phantom pressure. Then came the first moment that made the coaching staff's eyebrows shoot up. A perfectly timed throw into a window, so tight you could have fit a stack of mail through it. It wasn't just a good throw. It was the kind of throw that tells you a quarterback sees the game differently. By day 7 of camp, the whispers had turned into sideline buzz. That day, Sanders went up against the Browns' first-team defense, and it was supposed to be a reality check. Welcome to the NFL, kid. Instead, he carved them up. Quick reads, precision timing, leading receivers into space like he'd been throwing to them for years. Every completion felt like a little slap across the face to the skeptics who thought he wasn't ready. And then came the scrimmage. Full contact. No red jerseys protecting quarterbacks from hits. This was supposed to be the setting where rookies flinch, where speed and chaos force them into bad habits. But Sanders? He treated it like it was just another drill. His pocket presence was surgical. His cadence drew 2 offsides penalties in the first quarter alone. He made throws on the run that had defensive players muttering under their breath. One deep strike over the middle set the crowd off like they'd just seen a playoff touchdown. The veteran receivers started hanging around after practice, not because they had to, but because they wanted to work with him. That's not something you fake. Wideouts can smell a pretend leader from a mile away, and they don't waste their time with guys who aren't going anywhere. The fact that they were chasing extra reps with Sanders told you everything you needed to know. And then word got upstairs. Jimmy Haslam, a man who doesn't exactly hand out compliments lightly, was suddenly asking a lot more questions about his rookie quarterback. That's when the tension started creeping in. See, here's the problem. You don't just bench a $230 million quarterback because a rookie looks good in camp. Not without inviting an absolute hurricane of media coverage and locker room politics. Deshaun Watson was the guy the Browns had mortgaged their future for. His name was on every marketing campaign, his face plastered across the stadium. The entire plan revolved around him. But now, that plan was suddenly flexible. The Browns' front office was quietly split. On one side, you had the traditionalists, those saying, it's just camp. You don't throw away experience for hype. On the other, the opportunists, those saying, we're here to win. If the rookie's the better option, why are we pretending otherwise? And the fans? Oh, the fans were already picking sides. Social media was a war zone. Half the timeline was posting clips of Sanders' throws with captions like "Our Future," while the other half warned against falling in love with a preseason mirage. Sports talk radio was eating it up, callers turning every discussion into a QB civil war. But here's what most people didn't realize. Sheduer's rookie contract had performance-based incentives baked in from the start. The Browns' front office hadn't exactly expected him to push for the job this early, but they'd left the door open for it. Those incentives weren't a throwaway detail. They were a subtle acknowledgement that, under the right circumstances, Sanders might actually outperform expectations. And now, those circumstances were here. By the time the second scrimmage rolled around, the tension had shifted from will Sanders make the roster to how long can we keep him off the field. That's a dangerous place for a veteran quarterback to be. Every minor mistake by Watson suddenly felt magnified. Every time a receiver looked frustrated after an incompletion, fans were quick to imagine what Sanders would have done with that throw. The thing is, Sheduer wasn't just good, he was ready. There's a difference. Plenty of rookies have talent, but they lack the control, the patience, the game sense to handle NFL speed. Sanders had all of it, and he had it in a way that made you forget you were watching a guy who'd never taken a regular season snap. The Browns coaching staff kept saying the right things in public. Watson is our starter. Sheduer is learning. We're excited about his future. But behind closed doors, those meetings were getting spicier. Do you ride with the investment, or do you ride with the momentum? Do you trust the plan, or do you trust your eyes? Because here's the reality. Football teams talk about competition all the time, but when a rookie starts winning that competition against a high-priced veteran, the playbook for handling it is thin. And this wasn't just any rookie. This was a rookie whose name, game, and demeanor were already pulling fans in like gravity. If Sanders gets into a regular season game early, whether because of injury, blowout, or just a situational package, and plays anything like he has in camp, the noise is going to become deafening. And once the noise reaches a certain pitch, even the most stubborn front office can't ignore it. The Browns thought they were drafting a quarterback for the future. But the way this is going, the future might be sitting in front of them, wearing number 2, calmly scanning the defense before zipping another throw right between the safeties. And that's the real story here. Sheduer Sanders didn't just earn respect. He changed the entire conversation around the Cleveland Browns in less than 2 weeks. He forced his way into a role he wasn't supposed to touch for years. And now, the team is standing at a crossroads. Stick with the known quantity, or take the leap on the rookie who's already winning over the locker room, the fans, and maybe even the owner. Whichever way they go, one thing's certain. The NFL critics who dismissed Sheduer Sanders before he ever stepped on the field are already eating their words. And if the Browns do give him the reins, those same critics might have to start rewriting their entire understanding of what ready really looks like in this league. Because ready or not, Sheduer Sanders is coming, and the league can feel it. The ripple effects of Sheduer Sanders' meteoric rise aren't confined to the Browns' training camp walls anymore. They're spreading across the entire NFL ecosystem. Scouts, front office executives, and even other rookie quarterbacks are paying attention, because what Sanders is doing is quietly rewriting the unspoken rules of how a late-round rookie can position himself for the top job. Normally, when you're a fifth-round pick, the battle is about survival, not stardom. You're fighting to make the 53-man roster, maybe earn a practice squad spot if things don't go your way. Your reps in camp are limited, your exposure is minimal, and the expectations are practically non-existent. That's the safe zone. Nobody blames you if you don't make waves. But Sanders is showing that survival is overrated when you can grab the spotlight instead. His rise has already forced the Browns to reconsider how they manage depth chart politics. In the NFL, a rookie making a case this strong this quickly usually means one of two things. Either he's having a freak hot streak that fades under real season pressure, or he's a foundational piece you weren't smart enough to recognize sooner. And the signs are pointing hard toward the latter. For one thing, Sanders' growth curve hasn't been linear. It's been exponential. The difference between his first camp rep and his 50th was like watching a high school quarterback turn into a seasoned college starter overnight. His timing with the receivers isn't just good for a rookie. It's sharp enough to survive the regular season gauntlet. Defensive backs have already said they can't bait him into bad throws, which is a rare compliment for any quarterback, let alone one in his first camp. Then there's the intangibles factor. Sanders has developed a habit of pulling teammates aside, offensive or defensive, and breaking down plays on the sideline. It's subtle leadership, the kind that doesn't feel performative. That's a delicate balance for a rookie to strike. Come off too strong and you look like you're overstepping. hang back too much, and you fade into the background. Sanders has managed to find the perfect middle ground, where his input feels like a natural extension of his role instead of a challenge to the veterans. Other quarterbacks in the league are noticing. Privately, a few rookies have reportedly asked their agents to study Sanders' contract structure, which contains those performance-based incentives. Why? Because it's a subtle signal that his camp anticipated the possibility of early playing time. And that's a form of leverage most rookies never think to negotiate for. If Sanders succeeds, this could start a trend where more rookies push for clauses that reward them for accelerating their development curve. The marketing side of the NFL is watching too. In a league where player branding has become nearly as important as on-field performance, Sanders has all the ingredients sponsors love: a famous last name, a confident yet approachable personality, and now a legitimate claim to being the next big thing in Cleveland. What makes his rise especially marketable is that he's doing it in an unexpected market. The Browns aren't New York or Los Angeles, but a young quarterback leading a resurgence in Cleveland? That's the kind of underdog story that national advertisers can build campaigns around. And here's another layer: the Deshaun Watson factor. Every throw Sanders makes that draws applause indirectly turns up the pressure on Watson. Even if Watson plays well, the perception is shifting. The Browns might have an equally talented option sitting right behind him who costs a fraction of the price. That's not just a depth chart issue. That's a long-term cap and roster construction question. If Sanders keeps this up, he might not just be pushing for playing time. He might be giving the Browns an excuse to rethink their entire financial commitment at quarterback over the next few years. From a team culture standpoint, Sanders is also shaking things up in ways that go beyond stats. The Browns have long battled a kind of institutional hesitation, a tendency to play not to lose rather than to win outright. Sanders' style is aggressive without being reckless. He's willing to take calculated risks, to trust his arm in tight windows, to step into throws even when a blitz is coming. That mindset is infectious. Teammates start to believe they can win games rather than just keep them close. That's the kind of cultural pivot that can make a playoff push feel possible in a season where no one expected it. Opposing teams are already adjusting. Word from joint practices is that defensive coordinators are treating Sanders like a legitimate threat, dialing up disguised coverages and exotic blitz looks just to see if they can rattle him. So far, they haven't. One coach reportedly joked, "We're running stuff we save for Week 10, and he's diagnosing it faster than some vets." That's the kind of behind-the-scenes respect that tells you a player's reputation is growing faster than his stat sheet. And let's talk about the psychology here. For a rookie to step into this kind of spotlight and not crumble, he has to have an internal confidence that borders on bulletproof. Sanders doesn't just have that. He's mastered the art of balancing swagger with humility. He talks about the team, praises his receivers, and downplays his own role in wins. But between the lines, he carries himself like a quarterback who believes the game is already his to command. That duality, humble off the field, ruthless on it, is what keeps veterans rallying to him instead of resenting him. It's also worth pointing out that Sanders hasn't even hit his physical ceiling yet. His footwork, while clean, still has room to tighten. His release speed could shave off a fraction of a second, and his deep ball, already good, could become lethal with a bit more NFL-level chemistry with his wideouts. The fact that he's winning this much attention before hitting peak form should terrify every defensive coordinator in the AFC. For the Browns, every week Sanders continues to impress makes the decision harder. If they sit him too long, they risk cooling off a hot hand. If they play him too soon and he stumbles, critics will call it a rush job. But there's a third risk no one's talking about. If they mishandle this and Sanders feels sidelined despite proving himself, they risk losing his buy-in for the long haul. Rookie QBs remember who believed in them and who didn't, and that can shape their loyalty when contract negotiations roll around in a few years. In the broader NFL narrative, Sanders is quickly becoming the kind of storyline that overshadows everything else. Training camps are full of rookies making plays, but few have the combination of name recognition, immediate impact, and high-stakes competition for the starting job that he does. That's why his clips keep going viral. why his jersey sales are climbing before he's even taken a regular season snap, and why every national sports show is slotting in Sheduer watch segments. If the Browns ride this wave correctly, they could go from a team fighting to stay relevant to a team everyone is watching for must-see quarterback drama. And if Sanders' trajectory continues at this pace, the drama might give way to dominance sooner than anyone expected. Because at this point, it's not a question of if he'll start. It's a question of whether Cleveland has the guts to make the move before the rest of the league forces their hand. The turning point comes midway through the season. It's not some Hollywood moment where Deshaun Watson gets injured and the rookie hero steps in. It's more strategic than that. The Browns are in the thick of the AFC playoff race, but the offense is stalling against a tough division opponent. The defense is doing its job, but the scoreboard isn't moving. That's when Kevin Stefanski looks down the sideline, finds Sanders, and says the 4 words that changed the rest of the season. "You're going in now." The stadium erupts when Sanders takes the huddle. There's an unspoken electricity that flows through the offensive line, the receivers, even the crowd. Everyone knows this is more than just a mid-game switch. This is the start of something. On his first drive, Sanders converted 3rd and 14 with a bullet pass between 2 defenders, then caps it off with a perfectly placed 25-yard touchdown strike. No wasted time, no nerves, just results. In that moment, the debate about who should be starting doesn't just intensify. It becomes inevitable. Inside the Browns building, from that game forward, everything shifts. Practices are reorganized so that Sanders gets more first-team reps. The quarterback's room dynamic changes. Coaches start designing plays that take advantage of his mobility and quick reads. Suddenly, it's not about running Watson's offense with a backup. It's about tailoring the scheme to Sanders' strengths. The biggest change comes in player morale. Veteran receivers who'd been frustrated with checkdowns and conservative routes now light up when they see their numbers called on deep and intermediate plays. Running backs benefit too, because Sanders' ability to stretch the field vertically forces defenses to back off, opening bigger running lanes. Media frenzy and narrative flip. National media jumps on the story immediately. Overnight, the conversation moves from "Is Sanders ready?" to "Did the Browns just stumble onto their franchise QB of the future?" Pundits dig up old takes from critics who dismissed him on draft day, replaying them as evidence of how wrong the league was. Sports talk shows start running comparisons between Sanders and other rookie QBs, except most of those rookies were drafted in the top 10. Then, the contract talk starts. People notice that Sanders' rookie deal has those performance incentives, and speculation grows about just how much money he could earn if he stays in the starting role for the rest of the season. It becomes one of the rare NFL stories where the business side is just as captivating as the on-field drama. Pressure on AFC rivals. Once Sanders starts stacking wins, rival AFC teams start feeling the heat. Teams like the Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals, who have built game plans around a certain Browns identity, suddenly have to prepare for a completely different quarterback profile. Instead of a traditional pocket passer, they're facing a rookie who can hit tight windows, escape pressure, and improvise in real time. Defensive coordinators begin studying his college film, trying to find tendencies or weaknesses they can exploit. But the problem is, Sanders isn't playing like the same quarterback from his Colorado days. He's already adjusted to NFL speed, and the film from early in his rookie season doesn't match what he's doing now. Locker room unity. In a league where QB controversies can split a locker room, Sanders' rise has the opposite effect. Watson, to his credit, publicly supports the rookie, framing it as doing what's best for the team. That takes the tension down a notch, allowing veterans to rally around Sanders without feeling like they're disrespecting the guy he replaced. It's not long before Sanders is one of the most vocal presences in the huddle. During close games, players feed off his calm, almost surgical demeanor. He doesn't scream, he doesn't panic, he just commands a moment. And for a team like Cleveland, which has been starved for consistent leadership at the quarterback position, that's a game changer. Impact on the QB market. When Sanders' success becomes undeniable, front offices around the league start having uncomfortable conversations about the value of late-round quarterbacks. The old idea that you must spend a top pick to find a franchise QB starts looking shaky. Sanders' emergence forces GMs to consider whether their scouting departments have been undervaluing traits like processing speed, leadership, and adaptability in favor of raw measurables. By the offseason, you can bet more teams will be combing the later rounds for players with Sanders' mental makeup, even if they don't check every physical box. Playoff push and Cleveland's new identity. With Sanders at the helm, the Browns' offense transforms from methodical to explosive. They start winning games they wouldn't have under a slower-paced, risk-averse system. Sanders' chemistry with the receivers reaches a point where they're making no-look connections, plays where it's clear they trust each other implicitly. Defensively, Myles Garrett and company feed off the energy. They're not just protecting leads anymore. They're playing to slam the door on opponents once Sanders puts them ahead. This complementary football turns the Browns into one of the most dangerous teams heading into December. The Haslam spin. When the Browns clinch a playoff berth, Jimmy Haslam goes on record saying this was always part of a long-term vision. It's classic ownership spin. Take credit for a decision that was, in reality, forced by undeniable performance. But the fans don't care. Cleveland hasn't had this much hope around a quarterback since, well, maybe ever. Sanders, for his part, avoids gloating. He thanks Watson, praises the offensive line, and talks about just doing my job. That humility cements his reputation as not just a talented QB, but the kind of leader who can carry a franchise for a decade. League-wide ripple effect. Sanders' rookie year becomes one of the most watched in recent NFL history. Rookie jersey sales spike. Kids in Cleveland playgrounds start mimicking his throwing motion. High school quarterbacks study his film not because of his arm talent alone, but because of how he processes defenses. Endorsements roll in too. He's not just the face of the Browns anymore. He's becoming one of the faces of the league. And because his breakout was unexpected, the narrative never feels manufactured. It's organic, the kind of Cinderella rise that NFL Films loves to turn into documentaries. The bigger lesson, beyond the stats and highlight reels, Sanders' story teaches a brutal truth to NFL decision-makers. Talent evaluation is still an inexact science, and sometimes the best player isn't the one you invested the most in. For the Browns, it's a reminder that flexibility can be more valuable than loyalty to a predetermined plan. For other teams, it's a warning. Don't let your bias toward draft pedigree blind you to what's happening right in front of you. And for Sanders, it's proof that he belongs, not as the rookie surprise or the backup with potential, but as the quarterback Cleveland can build around. His rookie year won't just be remembered for what he did. It'll be remembered for how quickly he forced everyone to change their expectations.